Hello and welcome to our next webinar with the topic Security in Buildings. Yeah, my name is Thorsten Reibel. I'm sitting here together, as always, with Jürgen Schilder. We will share this webinar. Some organizational topics. First of all, as always, you can give us some question in the chat if you want during the webinar. At the end, we try to answer this immediately. Latest at the end of the webinar, or if not possible, we will give you in our feedback email the right answers, hopefully. And as always, we send you this feedback email with the recorded webinar and also with the presentation. As always, we have also kind of examen for you. There will be 5 questions, so you will be forwarded later on to the TP Online platform, where you can answer these questions. And if you forget this or you cannot do this right now, please do it later. We will send you also a reminder. Okay, so let's start with the webinar, Security in Buildings. So what will be our agenda for today, for the next hour approximately? I will give you a small introduction into the solution with some general topics, before we come then to some basics of intrusion alarm systems, some definitions, some wordings you should know, continued by interior monitoring and exterior surveillance sensors you need for this purpose. The setting and unsetting topic will be important, of course, and how to send out an alarm. A further topic we will show to you. Then a short overview only of our ABB solutions for security applications. There are a few available and no details today. And finally, we will talk a bit about standards and guidelines for intrusion alarm systems, which are also important sometimes, so you get also a small impression about this. Before I come to some definitions, some basics of the intrusion alarm system, let's do the following. Let's look into a private building. What can happen in such a private building regarding an alarm system? And if you talk about an alarm system, of course, it's to monitor a property or a building against any unauthorized intrusion. Also, any technical alarms can be integrated. You will see later on water and gas sensor, for example. So this can be also dangerous for the building or for the users. And if there's any, let me say, hold up, any panic, you can also send out an alarm in such a case. These are the targets of our intrusion alarm systems. And if you have a look again into a private house, what can happen regarding an alarm system in such a building over one day, for example? So we start at the night, where we have an internal setting. We will explain what's behind. In the morning, we will unset the system. During the day, we will leave the building, and that leads us to so-called external setting. And if we come back to our house, the system will be unset again. It's a similar situation like in the morning, where we unset our system after the night. So let's have a look in some more details about this day routine, let's say, regarding security in a building. So we start in the morning with the internal setting. Sorry, in the night with the internal setting. So we would like to go to bed right now. What do? We activate internal setting, and all peripheral sensors will be activated. Peripheral sensors, you will see later on some more details, are, for example, window contacts, magnetic read contacts to monitor the window, is it open or closed. We can have also glass breakage sensors to detect whether a glass is destroyed, for example. And all these things can happen or can be triggered if an intruder would like to enter your building. So the face of the building, let me say, will be monitored. What we do not activate are any motion detectors, which are also sometimes part of the security solution. But if we are inside the building still, and maybe in the night we have to get up, go down to the kitchen, we should be able to walk around in our building without any alarm triggered. And therefore, during internal setting, we do not activate our motion detectors. So maybe, hopefully not, but it can happen that any intrusion takes place during the night. Your building is secured, and what will happen? First of all, an internal alarm will be activated. If you have internal setting active, first of all, an internal alarm means a siren inside the building will be activated. So of course, it's maybe not enough. Maybe after a short time, an additional external alarm, whatever it means, we will say later on, a siren outside or a remote alarm by phone will be carried out. Or you trigger this manually, for example, also possible. The way of alarm is not fixed. We can adapt this a bit to the requirements, though there are some recommendations, of course, how an alarm should take place. If anything happens during the night regarding technical alarms, means any technical sensors will be triggered, gas, water, and also smoke detector, for example, then of course also an alarm has to take place. Normally also starts with an internal alarm to inform you are inside the building, that something is not correct, and you can react on this. Maybe also an additional so-called technical alarm will be sent out, again via telephone, for example, telephone connection. But this is also adjustable. And technical sensors, of course, are always active. Means, independent of the status, whether your system is active or not, your alarm system, an alarm can be sent out, of course. So, what else can happen? We wake up in the morning, would like to get up, would like to use anything in the building, for example, would like to open the windows, so we have to unset the system. We deactivate the alarm logic, so you can walk around without any restrictions in your building and can act quite normal, let me say. So no intrusion alarm sensor will be active at that time. What is always possible if you are at home, a so-called hold up or panic alarm can be carried out. You see here a component, later on another picture will be visible. It's a special button, for example, you can press to send out a panic alarm, hold up alarm if necessary. This is always active also if the system is unset. And again, our technical sensors, of course, should be also active all the time, as already mentioned. So, anytime during the day we would like to leave our building. Nobody is inside the building anymore. So we have to carry out the so-called external setting. Means all sensors, all intrusion alarm sensors will be activated, including the motion detectors. Because nobody is inside the building anymore. And this is the best way of protection, of course. So should any intrusion take place at that time, nobody is in the home, of course, immediately an alarm will be sent out, and then we talk about an external alarm first of all, because nobody is inside the building, and typically a siren outside at the facade or a strobe light, or again any quiet alarm can be carried out to inform somebody via email or voice message or whatever. There are different options, and as always, the technical sensors are active. Of course, if you are not at home, a next so-called technical alarm should take place, means immediately somebody outside should be informed. But again, here are some options how to do this, and can be adjusted in our solutions. So, returning to your home anytime during the day means you have to unset the system. Then we have the same status as in the morning. Nothing is active, no alarm sensor is active, no intrusion alarm sensor is active. Again, only our hold up alarm is always possible, and the technical sensors. So that's like the same situation as in the morning, and it's not different. And anytime in the evening you start again to set internally your alarm system, so the procedure is repeating, let's say. That's a typical situation in a private house which can take place, and this was only alarm functions or alarm related, let me say, logic. Everybody knows intelligent buildings, especially KNX, and of course there are some more options which you can combine with such a security solution. That's of course very often our target, not only a standalone solution but integration into the building or home automation. Here are some further examples which can, let me say, support your alarm system. For example, in case of any situation, you set the alarm system, or any alarm takes place, you can also take some actions in your building, like switching off some electrical circuits if nobody's in your house, for example. or in case of external setting, automatically these things can take place, for example. Internal or external setting. Or if you're not at home, alarm system is active, but also additional simulation of activity will be done. So called presence simulation can be carried out by switching on some lights during the night, so it simulates activity in your building, which also increase the safety of your building for any possible intruders, against any possible intruders. If you have smoke detectors in your building and electrical windows, in case of fire alarm, for example, you could open such windows, or if you set your system externally, you automatically close such a window. Water sensors next to your electrical installation can be very dangerous. Electrical shocks can take place, so you switch off automatically power circuits, for example, in case of water leakage. Or you open electrical windows in case of gas leakage, if you have a gas sensor installed. Furthermore, if you have any display, there are different solutions, not only based on KNX. You can go to this display and check is any window still open, or also the door locked in the basement, for example, before you leave your house. So it makes it even more comfortable and safe if you have something like this visualized. We were talking about silent alarms or remote alarms already. So it's easy to send out any alarms via SMS, email, and also voice message, which also, let me say, increases the performance of the system and gives you some more comfort. Or in case of alarm, again, any intrusion alarm, for example, you start flashing your lighting in your building, kind of additional flashlight or strobe light, which is easily possible with an intelligent home or building automation, for example. Good. Before we come to the details of an alarm system, another small topic I would like to mention here. We just discussed about the solution. It's for, again, unauthorized or against unauthorized intrusion, of course. Technical alarms shall be detected. Any hold-up alarm can be carried out. So it's a real essential part of your building, and system has to run properly, of course. So any false alarms should be avoided, because this is not good. For example, your neighbors detecting always false alarms in your private house, they will not take care of these alarms anymore. They will say, okay, it's not properly working, this system, and they will not react on this anymore. So neither good. Very often, if something like this happens, it's due to wrong planning, wrong installation, of course, or even also sometimes existing incorrect operation of the customer. What does it mean if you do not operate it correctly and you run into your building and the system is still set? Of course, then you will trigger an alarm. So it's important to implement such a solution the right way, starting from planning over installation, and also correct operation, of course, is necessary. But it's not a, let me say, a problem. You can do this, and a lot of projects, of course, are implemented with our solutions. But it's a bit more than lighting control, let's say. Good. Let's come to some basics of an intrusion alarm system right now, that has to do with lines or circuits and the alarm matrix. So what is behind this? This is really essential, and you should know about this. Before we come to this, you see here again an overview of an intrusion alarm system. First of all, we have a central part, a panel, whatever it is. Different solutions from ABB available. But this component is the logic, the intelligence. It has some in and outputs to connect all your components you need for a complete solution, which are, of course, sensors to detect any malfunction, any opening of a window, any smoke or fire in your building. And you need, on the other side, of course, something to send out an alarm. Strobe light and siren here, for example, internal siren or telephone connection. But the next picture shows it a bit more detailed. Again, in the center our intrusion alarm panel with a total logic, and here some sensors you could have in your building connected to this component, and the intrusion alarm panel allows to detect the status of these sensors. On the other side, alarming, as already discussed, but we need a bit more. We need additional power supply, of course, typically 230 volts, so the main supply. But in case of power failure, the system should run continuously. So practically, you have also a battery inside such a solution. Here in this case, it can be installed directly inside. So in case of any power failure, the system will run continuously. And either very important operation for the user, how to set and unset the system, how to check the status of any sensors of the system itself. 2 examples here, more are possible. For example, here a typical setting device you have installed outside of your building. We'll see it later on in reality. Or here a keypad to operate inside the building your alarm system, including setting or unsetting, but also some more options here inside. So this could be a complete solution, and important is now how to connect first of all these sensors here. Do we need one wire for one sensor? How does it look like? It's a bit different. So we call it zones or electrical circuits, and a zone in principle is a collection of sensors. You see an example of 3 magnetic reed contacts, and these sensors will be linked together in one circuit and then connected to your alarm panel with 2 wires, as you can see here. So not only one, but depending on your situation, you can connect more. Recommendation is maximum 20 sensors or detectors, for example. Of course, if any of these contacts is triggered, you cannot distinguish anymore. You see only, okay, in this zone or in this circuit an alarm took place. But normally you install such a zone, depending on your project, for maybe 1-2 rooms or for part of your floor. So where, let me say, it fits together, and for you it's okay to have only one circuit available. So all these sensors together form a zone, and of course per zone I can send out a status. Is it okay, or is it triggered? Is there any fault, any malfunction? The way how we install such a zone can be different. We call, there are 2 options, a secondary line can be installed or a primary line. It's different in installation a bit, and different in the performance of this zone. So let's have a look to a secondary line with an open circuit or open circuit sensors. You see it here. These open circuit sensors, or normally open contacts, let's say, are connected in parallel, for example. In this case 3. Connected to our panel, and of course if there's any closing of one contact, it will be detected here, and system can take action, send out an alarm or whatever, only a status, depends. But the challenge here is what happens if you create a short circuit intentionally here at the beginning of this panel. It's like closing a contact here. You see no difference. So manipulation, for example, when we detect it, or I open the circuit here, it's not different from, let me say here, the open contact. So you cannot say, is it a real alarm? Is it a manipulation of the system? Which of course is not good for a professional alarm system. So we call it non-monitored line. We cannot detect any malfunction in wiring or any manipulation here of the electrical circuit. The same happens if you have a closed circuit type secondary line. Means we have normally closed contacts in serial connected here in the circuit. Same principle. If I create here a short circuit now, nothing changes. So it's like the situation before, and something will not be detected, for example. So either not monitored here. Not acceptable for a professional alarm system, and that's the reason why we work normally with so-called primary lines. A primary line is a bit different. You see a mixture of normally closed and normally open contacts. which is possible in this solution. But furthermore, you see here at the end an end-of-line resistor, so-called 2.7 kilo ohm, which allows us to monitor the cabling here regarding interruption or regarding short circuit. Means any manipulation or malfunction of this electrical circuit, and it can be detected immediately, and we can check and the solution and of course solve the problem. Advantage is here also that you can connect both, normally closed and normally open contact. You see here some examples. A normally open contact, for example, is a water detector. A normally closed contact, for example, is a motion detector. What we combine in one zone, we will see later on. Makes no sense to combine anything in one zone, but I will come to this a bit later. We do it right now here. So if I form a zone of numerous sensors, these sensors has to match, of course, depending on alarm behavior and depending on the setting status. Let's make an example here, which is not okay. A motion detector and glass break sensors in one zone is not okay. Why? A motion detector is active with external setting, but not with internal setting. A glass break sensor is always active, internal or external setting. So I cannot distinguish here. Makes no sense, of course. Another example which could be possible, because it fits together, a window contact and a glass break sensor, both peripheral sensors which should be active in case of internal setting and external. Could be linked together. Maybe for one room you connect all these window contacts and glass break sensors in one zone. Target is to have an economical solution, means we cannot use for each sensor one individual zone. There's a lot of wiring and a lot of inputs unnecessary. Nobody will do this practically. So we have to form any zones which contain numerous but sensors which fits together. Or here, smoke detector technical alarm is always active. A window contact, of course, only active if system is set, externally or internally, and should not be linked together. The same for smoke and water detector, though both are technical alarms. If you would like to distinguish between situation water or fire alarm, you have to separate this and install it in different zones, of course. Yes, a small technical explanation. How does it work with these primary lines and this end-of-line resistor? It's a very simple solution. Inside the panel we have a reference voltage, in this case 13 volt. From 13 volt we go via an also 2.7 kilo ohm resistor inside the panel to this potential here, and then we go over the circuit and the end-of-line resistor to zero voltage here. So practically, if the circuit is fine here, like this, normally closed contacts are closed and normally open contacts are open and nothing is manipulated or short circuit here, you will have half of the reference voltage here, around 7 volt. You see we have here a tolerance between 6 and 8 volt, depending on the resistance of your wiring. It can be a bit different. So anything in this range is okay. Nothing is wrong. If we close here a contact, then immediately this potential will be 0. Down there, fault. Or if I open here a contact, then this point will have the potential of the reference voltage, 13 volt. We will be here, for example, and then, of course, any alarm takes place. And additionally, if I manipulate something here, I disconnect the wiring here, or by chance it happens that something is not correctly installed and it opens here automatically, it will be detected. So also this manipulation or malfunction of the wiring will be monitored this way. How to connect these sensors in such a zone. Here one example of magnetic reed contact which has 4 wires. How to do this? In principle, very simple. If you look on the wires here, then it looks like this. You take 2 wires which are next to each other directly. Which one is not important. You can take also these 2 here. But let's take this one here, the next the first two are next to each other, will be connected to the input of your zone at the security panel, whatever you have. And the final two will be linked to the next sensor you might have. Again, here, two wires you choose which are next to each other, and then the next go to the next sensor. And any time you have your end-of-line resistor, of course, which has to be installed at the end of your wiring. Seems to be a bit complicated here, why it's not labeled here which wires you should do. So if you would like to do any manipulation, and you would like to know where is a contact in between these wires or these, you don't know. So it's not so easy to manipulate if you have no, let me say, labeling here. That's the reason. But if you know this principle here, then it's also easy for you to install this. Some other sensors are a bit different. If you go to a motion detector, you will find directly an open, normally closed contact. You can link here, and you need also only 12-volt power supply, for example. But you find this here at some sensors, for example. Good. We have discussed a bit the wiring, the sensors, the detectors. Before we come to some more details, here the so-called alarm matrix. A typical situation, depending on the status of your alarm system, unset, internally set or externally set. Remember, at the beginning I have explained this a bit. And depending on triggered sensors here, what kind of alarm should take place. Let's make an example. If you have any peripheral protection, for example the window contact or the glass break sensor, if the system is unset, nothing should happen if you open the window, of course. It's a normal state, nothing should happen. If you are at home, you have internally set your alarm system, and somebody opens a window, first of all, internal alarm takes place. With the siren you see here, also later on will be explained a bit more. If nobody is at home, externally sets the system, of course, immediately external alarm with siren, flashlight, for example, should take place. Internal protection, remember, motion detector mainly. Not active if the system is unset, of course, but neither if it's internally set, because you would like to run around your building if necessary, without any alarm. Only active with external setting. Your panic button should be active all the time. If you're at home and something happens, somebody would like to attack you, you can press this button and immediately, for example, a remote alarm, a silent alarm will be sent out. And of course that's what you want. The same happens if you're at home and you have internally set your system. But of course, if nobody is at home, you cannot activate this panic alarm, so nothing can happen here in such a case. Tamper contacts are contacts at some exposed devices like the siren, flashlight, or the setting device outside, which are also monitored regarding opening of the housing. For example, here, this case, somebody can try to manipulate this to open this, and if you try to open this, a tamper contact will be activated, linked in our zone, and alarm takes place immediately. You see, also if nothing is set, internal alarm takes place. It's the same with internal setting, and of course if nobody is in the house and somebody manipulates here the siren, external alarm will take place. Technical sensors, of course, active all the time, independent of the status. It's very important. And finally, lock monitoring means so if you have a main entrance, which of course is standard, and it's not locked, then it should prevent any setting, any whatever setting, internal, external setting. So it has to be locked first of all, and additional, let me say, condition we have here in this alarm matrix. So it's not directly alarm, it has to do more with the setting of the alarm system. Good. I would hand over to Jürgen right now. He gives you some more information about the sensors, alarming, setting, unsetting, and also about standards and guidelines. Just a moment, please. I hand over to Jürgen right now.
Hello and a warm welcome from my side. My name is Jürgen Schilder and I introduce you how to monitor a building, for example when we use the interior monitoring, the exterior surveillance, including the components, the motion detectors, the magnetic read contacts, and some words about the setting devices and the alarming. Okay, I switch also off the camera again. Good. So let me start with the interior monitoring. So afterwards I show you some topics about the exterior. The best thing is we have a mix of both, which means we have an interior monitoring and also here the exterior surveillance of our building. So it is also possible to install only motion detectors in a building for the interior monitoring. The motion detectors have the advantage they requires less effort for installing, so we need only a motion detector per room. So this is also a simple and cheap solution. But these motion detectors are special kind of detectors which were developed for intrusion alarm systems with a high level of immunity to false alarms. You cannot compare these motion detectors for intrusion alarm systems like another presence detector for KNX, or for example, because these detectors are installed here in the corner, like you can see it here, in a height about 2.5 meters, and they have a range about 86 degrees and detect here the motion inside the room. They are very high immunity of false alarms, so only when they really see there is a person, then they make an alarm. So never use a motion detector like you know it, for example, from the KNX world for switching a light as an intrusion alarm sensor. So we have different types of motion detectors, infrared motion detectors or dual technique motion detectors. I'll show you in the next slides. And some of these sensors can be connected by wiring the cores to an input of an intrusion alarm panel, or they can be connected to the security bus of our intrusion alarm system. Of course, all our devices, including the magnetic read contacts and technical sensors, are compliant to the European standard for intrusion alarm systems, of course. Good. And it's very important to install all the sensors and contact detectors inside the building. So never use a motion detector, for example, on the terrace or in the garden as an alarm sensors. Now Torsten explained you, we want to prevent false alarms. That's why we are only allowed to use the sensors inside our building. Let me start with the first type of motion detectors. We have a so-called passive infrared detector. So this is an intrusion alarm detector which reacts to the movement of heat, like a human being. When we walk in our room, then we walk here through the detector range of our motion detector, and he see our movement, our warm body, and then he makes an alarm. So this motion detector has to be installed in the corner of a room, like you can see it here on this picture. With his detection range of 86 degrees, he can look here into our room. He has no 90 degrees because 4 degrees he has reduced his range, because here we have our heating system. Of course, the heating system is also a warm device. That's why he has here a limited range of 86 degrees. It is also important that a motion detector gets no sunlight from outside. So don't install the motion detector like here, that he can see the sun from outside or get the influence from outside the building. And also please prevent that he can see other heat sources like radiators or such things. And strong drafts, like for example fans of air condition, can also have the influence here to the motion detector. So this infrared motion detector has also an LED. Here in the middle it is a red LED, which shows you, for example, that the motion detector has made an alarm. Now when we set externally our system and we have here a motion inside this room, then he makes an alarm, and after unsetting this red LED goes on. Additionally, we have to test all sensors after they are now installed. Here our motion detector, we can have another kind of input, or via our bus motion detector he can receive a so-called walk test signal, and then when we walk through the range, every time the red LED flashes here, and then we can see the motion detector is okay and his detection range is okay, or maybe we have to adjust here the motion detector. The next type of motion detector is called a so-called dual motion detector. He has two kind of detection principles. One is in our infrared technology, like before, together or plus with a kind of microwave technology. So here we have our typical infrared detection principle, the yellow one with our different ranges, and here white you can see it is a kind of microwave measurement. So the motion detector sends also here a kind of microwave into the room and evaluates how does this frequency comes back. And when there's a difference between sending and receiving frequency, then he knows, okay, there is a motion. And this motion, of course, is temperature independent. And now when he detects two motions, one with the infrared and here with our microwave, and then he makes an alarm. And via the LEDs, he shows also again here the alarm. For example, with the green LED, he showed that the microwave has detected a motion, the yellow one here, that the infrared part has detected a person, and when both has detected, then the red LED goes on and shows, yes, there's really a motion inside the room. So maybe for rooms, where we have sometimes problems with heat or cold air, then it's recommended to use, for example, this kind of dual motion detectors. So another kind for interior monitoring is to use technical sensor. It is also allowed to connect a technical sensor to an intrusion alarm system. For example, the so-called fire or smoke detector, like here installed on the ceiling. So and they detect, depending on the principle, smoke or also heat. Standard device is, for example, a smoke detector. He has an optical principle inside, but for kitchen or for bathrooms we recommend to use here, instead of an optical, to use here a temperature sensor or heating sensor. So, and also this sensor have to be tested. So we have in our product range overview a kind of testing aerosol. It's a kind of spray to test here the smoke detectors. Another kind of sensor, technical sensor, is a so-called gas detector. So this gas detector, he can detect all kind of burning gases like propane, methane, butane. So you have to install this gas detector maybe on the ground here or on the ceiling, depending on the weight of your gas. So some gases are maybe more heavy, for example, than the air, then you have to install it here, or for example, here on the ceiling. And such a technical sensor, a smoke detector or gas detector, makes only a technical alarm and an internal alarm. So outside we have no siren or strobe light, so the internal siren goes on, is triggered, and alarms the people which are maybe staying here inside the building. Additionally, we can also install kind of water detectors. So these water detectors are laid here on the ground, and via these gold-plated pins here, they can detect the water. Like for example, we have it when we have pipe fractures or when we have damaged water pipes or something, like here in the water in the washing machine or on a dishwashers, and then he makes also an internal alarm, and our internal siren is now triggered or send a message maybe to your mobile phone or someone. So it's an additional feature to use also here these technical sensors for interior monitoring. So for kind of hold up alarms or case of emergency, for example, it is possible to install such hold-up detectors, maybe like here in the entrance area or in your master bedroom, or for example in a small shop at a cashier. So when he will be threatened, then he can press here manually this button and trigger a so-called hold-up alarm. Depending on your local standards, here in Germany, for example, such a hold-up detector must only trigger a so-called remote alarm to send a message to alarm receiving company, for example. But it's also possible maybe to change the programming of a panel, that such a hold-up alarm, for example, to switch also on our siren or the strobe light which is outside the building. This is also possible. So let me show you the devices for exterior surveillance of a building. The advantage of such a exterior surveillance is we can, for example, get the information when there is an attempted break-in. So this is maybe a more advantage. So we get the information when, like here, our intruder now tries to open the window. So before he comes inside the building, we get our alarm. And additionally, we can use the so-called internal setting over the night. With motion detectors, only motion detectors, you cannot have a kind of internal setting. So this Magnetic reed contacts consist of our magnet, which is maybe fixed here on the frame of our door or on our window, and here this is the magnetic, and here our reed contact. So you can see here the door frame and the door leaf. So and now when we close here our door, then the magnetic magnetic field gives the information here to our reed contact, and we have the information the door is closed. Or when we open the door, then we have the information that the door is open. So with such a magnetic contact, we can only monitor the door is opened or closed. That is very important, open or closed. Not if the door is locked, only open or closed information. So it is possible to install this magnetic reed contact, maybe a kind of drill installation like here. Then we use, for example, this special kind of flanges here. Then we drill here a hole in the frame and in our window leaf or on our door leaf, and install it face to face. So here the magnet and here our reed contact. Or we use, for example, the housing for a kind of surface installation. Then we install here the housing, here our magnet, and here our reed contact parallel. This is also possible. Then we can use here this housing. Additionally, we have here the screws for the fixing of our housings, or here this kind of flanges. And then we have the information opening a door or window, also a skylight or a roof window. Then we have the information. For monitoring garage doors or rolling doors, for example, or large doors, we recommend to use special sensor, special magnetic reed contact, like for example this one here. So we can fix here on the ground our reed contact, and it's also possible to drive via a car over this reed contact. So he is very resistant against chemicals and dust and moisture, everything, petrol for example. And here on our door we have the magnetic. It's also possible maybe for roller shutter doors and such things. So for monitoring of glass panes, we can use so-called glass break sensors. So, and this glass break sensor we have inside a microphone. So we have here some small electronic parts inside, like the microphone. And this microphone is listening to the typical vibrations which happens when, for example, a glass pane now is damaged, and then he makes also an alarm. So it's very important to use here a special kind of glue, the so-called, which comes from a company Loctite adhesive, which is special produced for glass metal, because on the back side of our glass break sensor we have a metal surface, a metal to glass, so we need a special kind of glue. So this is a passive device, the glass break sensor, which has a detect range up to 2 meters. So now for a standard window it's enough, but when you have a window, for example, here like 4 or 5 meters, then it's also possible to install here more glass break sensors, and connect all these 3 sensors in series. There's also one possibility to monitor here a large glass pane, for example. These glass break detectors have also here kind of LED. So this LED goes on or becomes red when he detects a glass break or after testing. Remember, after installation we have to test all our sensors. But how to test a glass break detector? So we have in our product range overview a so-called testing tool, a glass break testing tool, and then we can simulate here the damage of a glass pane. And then the LED becomes here red, and then we know, okay, he is okay, the wiring is okay, and he still can detect a real glass break. So, but how we can monitor if a door or a window is locked? For opening we have the magnetic reed contact, but we have also to monitor if a door or a window now is locked. So for the directly monitoring, lock monitoring of a window, we can use a special kind of sensor. This is a kind of reed contact, and we have here a round magnet. This round magnet is fixed here on our rod drive of our, or the driving plate of our window. So now when we turn our handle and we lock the window, this round magnet drives here in the position from left to right. And in our door frame we have installed our reed contact, and then when we lock our window, this magnetic drives exactly here in this position, and via this magnetic field it gives the information here to our read contact, and then we have the information our window is now locked. So it is very important to monitor also the windows if they are really locked. So, but be careful, this principle by using here this round magnet depends on the manufacturer here of your driving plate or of your window. So another possibility is a so-called the indirectly lock monitoring. So in this case we need our window opening blanker. We have two versions, one with 150 Newton meters and another one with 35 Newton meters. Inside it is only a kind of mechanical spring. So now this device is installed here inside our window frame. You see it, for example, here. This here is our window frame. Here we have our door leaf. Here is the fulcrum. And now we can close here our window. So when we take, for example, here our window leaf and we close it, then this small window opening blanker reopens our window, and the read contact gives us the information that the window is not locked. Only when we close our window and then we turn the handle, then we really lock our window and we can override here our so-called window opening blanker. So by using this kind of a mechanical solution, by using these window opening blankers, we get the information the window now is locked together here with a magnet read contact. So this possibility works every time, independent your window or door, because here we have a kind of mechanical solution. So, and here we can see a solution how to monitor if a door, our entrance door or a cellar door now is locked. So, and we use here a device which is called a lock bolt switching contact. This device is installed here inside our door frame. Here is our door leaf. So we insert here our key, we turn the key, and then we lock the door. And during locking, this locking bolt drives here, for example, inside our door frame. And here we have our lock bolt switching contact, and the switch lever here of our contact gives us the information, yes, the door now is locked. So by using the sensors, we have the information door is locked or unlocked. And then what does it mean? In our entrance door, for example, we need two contacts. One is our magnetic read contact, which gives the information window open or closed, and this kind of lock bolt switching contact, which gives the information the door is locked or unlocked. So let me talk about the setting, unsetting, how we can unset a system. We have two possibilities. One is the so-called external setting. When we leave our building or when we stay inside the building, then we have the so-called internal setting. So now I start with the typical setting. We have it here in Germany. According to the German standards, we have to set our system direct, which means from outside the building. So we have to leave the building, close the door, lock the door, and set or unset the system here via a setting device which is installed outside the building. So this can be, for example, our safe key wall reader, and by using our electronic key, our safe key, or entering a pin, we can external set or unset the system. Additionally, we have here inside a buzzer, or it depends on the setting device, a LED for example. Then we get a temporary setting confirmation that the setting was successful, yes or no. So additionally, we need here another device, a so-called electromechanical bolt lock. This is a device which is very important, and it must be installed here in our door frame. So now when we set the system externally, a small plastic bolt like here drives out, and this plastic bolt drives into a hole which is here inside our door leaf. So now this bolt here now locks our door. So now when our system is set, it is not possible to open here the door, so we can make no false alarm. At first we have to unset the system via our wall reader here, then this bolt drives in, and then we can enter here our building. This is one of the best devices to prevent a false alarm. So it can never be possible that someone opens here the door and enter an external set building. So this is, for example, like we have it here in Germany according to the German guidelines and German standards. Outside Germany, it is quite common to use the external delayed setting. So we have inside our building our arming device, our keypad, and via the keypad we start our delay time. So we can enter here our a pin and start the so-called delay time. Then we leave our building, and after a fixed time or with closing the door, the system goes delayed external set. This is quite common. And it's a very also cheap solution because we need no arming device outside the building and so on. And now when we come at home, we open our entrance door, and the magnetic read contact in the entrance door or the motion detector in our entrance area must be a delayed sensor which can be programmed in the panel, and then a so-called alarm delay time starts, which is between 45 or 60 seconds, and during this time we have to go to our keypad and enter here our unset pin, and then the system goes unset and everything now is well. But when the time is over, longer than 60 seconds, or we enter here 3 times a wrong pin, or we have forgotten to unset the system, then our external alarm happens. And this is a very dangerous situation because here the end user can now trigger a false alarm. So maybe you come at home, you open the door, the time is now running, and you go back to your car because you have forgotten your mobile phone or you talk to your neighbor, but after 1 minute you get a false alarm, an external alarm. Because the system cannot detect who opens the door. You, for example, the owner of the building, or was an intrusion from outside. And then really it can happen here a lot of false alarms. For the internal setting, like during the night for example, or the evening, you want to watch television and you want to feel in a safe environment, then you can go to the same keypad and set the system internally. Internally, all motion detectors are disabled, not used in alarm logic, but maybe you can use these motion detectors for sending messages to KNX to switch on the light, but they are not inside the alarm logic. But the complete peripheral sensors like the magnetic read contacts, glass break detectors are activated, and though maybe the skin of your building, the surrounding is now monitored by the panel. So what about the alarming? So we have 2 types of alarming. One is our so-called external alarming. External alarming means our system now is set external set, so no one is at home. We have set our system external, and someone opens a window, like breaks in for example, or we have a motion inside, then the panel triggers a so-called external alarm. So one can be an external local alarm. So local means outside the building we have installed here a combination signaling device which consists of a siren and a strobe light. So the strobe light here flashes and shows there's an intrusion alarm, and the siren is limited up to 3 minutes, so we can hear 3 minutes long a kind of loud signal. But after 3 minutes this siren now stops working, but the flashlight here is still on. It is also recommended to install a second siren without a flashlight, which is not visible, for example here somewhere in the wood paneling. Because this one here is visible and someone can manipulate the siren and break inside a building, then it's good that the second siren, which cannot be manipulated because it's behind the wood paneling, makes an alarm. So additionally to our local alarm, the panel triggers a silent or remote alarm. So we have installed a kind of dialing device and send this message, for example, via our telephone network or GSM, IP for example, to a security company. And these are digital signals, kind of digital protocols. And here in the alarm receiving company, someone gets the information here on his screen, and then he can react and check if it's a real alarm, for example, or a false alarm. Additionally, it's possible to send also voice messages to the owner of a building, for example, that you have an alarm, intrusion alarm, or also technical alarm. But these dialing devices are different from your local market. We have kind of different protocols. So each country has the kind of different solutions. So we recommend to use your local dialing devices. So for kind of internal alarming, like for example, we have set our system internally over the night. We use the so-called inside our siren, inside siren. This siren is recommended to install it, for example, here in the staircase somewhere, or in the cellar, or maybe in the floor, but not in the sleeping area. And then when we have a technical alarm, fire or smoke, for example, then you can hear this internal siren inside the building. So now what about the panels? A small overview here about our ABB solutions we offer. So we have in principle 4 solutions. The first solution is a pure KNX solution, used by using the so-called KNX security terminal. This is only one device, a single KNX security terminal with 4 or 8 inputs or zones. Inside we have the complete alarm logic. So here with internal set, external set, with internal alarming, external alarming, it is like a real intrusion alarm panel, limited to 8 inputs. So maybe for a small apartment, it is enough. You don't have more zones, and then you can use only here the KNX security terminal together with all your other KNX devices, switch actuator, shutter actuator, and so on. So the next step is to use the so-called security module when we have more than one security terminal with up to 512 zones are possible. The professional solution is to use the intrusion alarm panel L240, which is certified according to the European standards. Together here, for example, with the KNX interface. This is still available, but now for new projects we recommend to use our new solution, the so-called KNX security panel. We launched this panel at the end of the last year here in the German-spoken countries like Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and this device will be also available in April or beginning of May in the international market. So this is, I think, the preferred solution. You can still use the L240, but this is recommended because this is up to date with IP on board, programmed via web browser, and so on. A very nice solution. So here again, the small overview. When you have only a small apartment, the pure KNX solution, we have our KNX actuators, sensors, our KNX uninterruptible power supply is recommended to use, and then we have here our security terminal and the inputs, our zones, we have the sensors, arming device, and the relays here. We have 3 potential-free relays. We can here connect our external siren or the internal siren. Inside we have the complete alarm logic. More than one security terminal, then we need additional logic, which is our so-called security module. Then we can have here endless number of security terminals. So one security module can evaluate up to 64 different zones, which comes here from our security terminals. And together with more security modules in a kind of master-slave mode, we can have up to 512 different circuits or different zones in our KNX security solution. This is also a pure KNX solution. Or here our new solution to use the KNX security panel. This is one intrusion alarm panel with some inputs. So here we can connect directly our magnetic read contact or motion detectors, technical sensors, or here our security bus for the bus motion detectors, zone modules, and on board we have IP interface for programming or to have access, for example, via tablet for operation. And our KNX interface is also on board, so we can send all status messages of our intrusion alarm system here in the KNX world, or we can connect here again security terminals including our sensors and send messages here into the panel and to use here the KNX security panel as alarm logic. This panel can now evaluate up to 344 different circuits or different zones. And we have here also the outputs on board for external alarming. We have a modem here on board also for sending voice messages and also possible to send emails. So this solution will be available end of April, beginning of May in the international market in different languages. So let me give at the end some words about the standards. Before you start planning intrusion alarm system, it is good to know have you to follow, for example, your local standards, or the customers want the intrusion alarm system independent some standards. But we recommend to observe your local standards and to comply also these standards. The situation is now at the moment each country worldwide has its own national guidelines. or standards. For example, here in Germany, our standard is the so-called VDS standards. That's why all our devices have also a so-called VDS number when you look in the product range overview, because this organization has tested and certified all our products, including the panel. So in other countries, like for example here in Austria, they have the VSÖ, or in Belgium they have the insert. So there are a lot of local standards and guidelines available. So the European Union has decided to specify one European standard some years ago, and now the result is now the European standard, the EN 50131. This is the European standard for intrusion, for alarm system, for intrusion and hold-up system. So this is also here valid in Europe. And of course, the next step was to have a worldwide, an international standard for intrusion alarm system, and this is so-called the IEC 62642. This is the international standard for intrusion alarm system. But when you read this manual here, or this standard, you will see it based on the European standard. So maybe they have copy and paste the European standard, and now so we have a worldwide standard for intrusion alarm panels. Good, so far the topics about security in buildings. Let me give you also some information here about marketing tools. We have our so-called application manual, which describes also the basics. What is for example, a circuit, our primary line, and gives you some solution based also on KNX. This is possible, available. You can download it from our website abb.com/KNX in German or English language. Then we have a new brochure, maybe end user oriented, for our new KNX security panel. This is still available in German and English language. Product information, what are the possibilities and the features of our new panel, and still here some product information of our existing KNX security panel. You can click also. You can go also online. There's a video available on YouTube. So when you type here "safe and smart," then you will see here two video clips. One is in German, one is in English, about 4 minutes. And this video clip gives you an impression about our new powerful KNX intrusion alarm panel. So click here, go on YouTube and watch these nice video clips. Additionally, we have given last year some webinars about security, for example about the security terminals or security module, and at the end of the last year also about our new KNX panel. So these webinars are also available as video clips, about 1 hour, so you can download it also from our website, and additionally the presentation of these webinars. Additionally, for security terminals, there's also an e-learning module available on our website. Good, for the German market, we have still launched a new website, which is abb.de/KNX-alarm. It shows you all the features and highlights and brochures and FAQs and everything about this new intrusion alarm panel. And it will be also available in English, abb.com/KNX-alarm in some weeks. So please, some weeks, visit here the website and you will see here this page in the English language. So far, I think we can close this webinar. I would like to give you the information of the next webinar, which takes place on the 29th of April. The same time in the morning 9 o'clock and in the afternoon 3 o'clock, but then we have summertime, so we have UTC plus 2 hours, and the topic now will be our new KNX fan call actuators. So we will launch at the first step 4 new devices. So these are really new devices. So we will send you also invitation email. Please remember the date, and I think we can close, Thorsten. So far. So after the webinar, you will see a feedback form, so please fill out and answer also the questions. Good, thank you for taking part and your attention. We're looking forward to welcome you again the next webinar, 29th of April. Have a nice day and goodbye to all.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye. Ciao.